isn't about another title or a political office. It is a movement. It is about making sure that South Carolina continues to have a conservative voice that isn't afraid to lead and isn't afraid to fight.
Graham's sister, Darlene, who was appointed by the governor to fill her brother's seat, also says she'll run for a full term. America's listening to Fox News.
Your insurance company tells you to go to a certain shop. Once they give you the inflated estimate, you think, better get Maaco. For over 50 years, Maaco has been repairing and painting cars. Maaco is not in contract with insurance companies. They work for you. They don't give insurance companies discounts and rebates you'd never get. At Maaco, you'll get an honest assessment of your repair work by trained, certified professionals. You'll get the choice to pay with insurance or out of pocket, whichever makes sense for you. So if you have an insurance claim, get a second opinion at Maaco on Kemper Street in Lynchburg.
Sandstone architecture, melodic music, wonders of the world. They're staples of Egyptian and Mediterranean culture. But you don't have to travel thousands of miles to experience it. Just drive to downtown Cairo. Downtown Cairo brings you food from the entire Mediterranean, blended with the best Egyptian recipes from super fresh ingredients. Staples like $7 gyros and build your own Mediterranean bowls. Experience the taste of the Egyptian and Mediterranean world in your own backyard. Downtown Cairo, Graves Mill Shopping Center in Forest.
As a parent, you said you'd never give up the convertible.
Look, the van even has its own backing.
You said you'd never schedule your life around a stuffed animal.
Nobody panic. Bun Bun is still at daycare.
And never put them in harm's way.
I'll be right back, little man. Just gonna pop in the store for diapers.
But never happens. Temperatures as low as 60 degrees can be deadly for children left behind. So always bring them with you every time you park the car. Stop, look, lock. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
America 250 is a great time to reflect on our country's past, present, and insane savings. BTRN's InsaneRadioDeals.com is celebrating 250 years of America with 25.0% off of everything. This includes savings on great local food options like the Briar Patch, Macado's, Oliver's 801 Raw Bar, Tacos Los Amigos, Caribbean Jerk Pot, and many more. The InsaneRadioDeals.com America 250 sale. 25.0% off of our entire inventory. Now until August 1st, you will not want to miss it.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app. 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, and asking your smart speaker, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane and JJ Hendrickson.
Moments after that TrostLaw.com fast take that dropped earlier today at Fastlane Ed Lane on the socials made its appearance, I was sitting in the new Hardy Center Virginia football complex. They had their media day for everyone who was not at ACC kickoff. No players, but assistant coaches, as well as the new general manager for the Virginia Cavaliers. And, on pops the screen about 20 minutes into it. LeBron James heads to Philly. We will get to all of that in the Fast Five at 5-ish, but I am very thankful that my phone was on airplane mode, even if it meant a barrage of text messages popped up afterwards, because it still helped me to keep my focus on being in the moment. All of which we're not even going to get to today in the Fast Lane, at least the observations from Virginia's media day. We'll get to that later. There's a lot, especially GM Justin Sparrows. That's the most fascinating thing that, from by far for me, came out of it. Transparent, candid, got some information that was more contextualized, if you will, but we hope to get some of it up in the near future at Fastlane Ed Lane on the socials. And one thing I did, are you familiar with David Teal, Hall of Fame columnist of dailypress.com?
No, I'm not, Ed.
You've got to check him out. He is the source on the blend of the ACC, Virginia Tech, and Virginia, as well as other schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Like, he is so well versed in it and is so well connected and well regarded, justifiably, that I just sat while he was asking his questions. And then I had some questions to piggyback off of it, some that I had thought of, and we were able to get all that content and hopefully bring some of it for you. Probably on Instagram more easily because you can go a little bit longer on that, but getting into the weeds. all of that to say, it took a back seat when the LeBron news broke because it just kept flashing up on the screens that were there in the Hardy football facility at Virginia. But the thing that popped up before all of that is something that I don't want to get lost in the weeds. It goes back to what transpired just across the street from Virginia's football practice facility, where John Paul Jones Arena is. Because do you remember a few months ago that they dedicated the court to Tony Bennett?
Yes, I do it.
And do you know the little nugget about that particular signature on the court at John Paul Jones Arena?
I do not. What do you mean?
In that signature are the signatures, the micro signatures, if you will, of every staff member at Virginia for the men's basketball program during the Tony Bennett era. Because he said if it was going to be his signature on the court, he also wanted his staff members, coaches, players, everybody involved in the program to be honored and recognized. By the way, that was actually supposed to happen during that Snowmageddon period in early February. But they had to postpone it because of everything that unfolded. So they ended up moving it to the Miami date. And Tony Bennett specifically said this about the signature.
And now I just want to say to the staff, the players, all those who were with me on this journey, you're what this is about. And when Ronnie told me they were going to do this, I said, is there any way, and this is what I'm most excited about, is there any way inside that signature we can put every name of every manager, walk-on player, support staff, coaches, so all your guys' names for the 15 years I've been the coach is inside that signature, so forever we will be on that court together, and it means a lot.
It embodies the normally, I know he's well-spoken, but the very media/microphone camera resistant Tony Bennett. Like, he hadn't really done any media availability with anybody since his retirement, outside of the times he's been honored at John Paul Jones Arena, once in the Ron Sanchez interim year, the other, obviously, when the court was named after him. Like, he just doesn't want to be part of the spotlight. We've asked a couple of times, including, by the way, we have Faith Fridays today with former director of spiritual and advancement and engagement at Liberty University, Ed Gomes. We've asked about Tony Bennett for that angle, just more of a Christian-based segment. Doesn't want to do it. Maybe that'll change in the near future, but I mean, it's kind of on brand with him. But it's a selfless not wanting the spotlight and wanting it to be about other people. Where all this is relevant is, you'll never guess this, NASCAR at North Wilkesboro this past weekend featured the throwback scheme. NASCAR does these all the time. But the throwback scheme to one of the Rusty Wallace paint schemes. He ran for Penske, Wallace did. Austin Cindric also runs for Penske. And so the number 2 car had the Rusty Wallace throwback scheme. Well, here's what Rusty Wallace said. And basically, I don't know if he knows Tony Bennett and what happened at John Paul Jones Arena. Maybe someone at Penske knew about this. But essentially a hat tip about the throwback scheme from Rusty Wallace and Penske in the vein of Tony Bennett court at John Paul Jones Arena.
Last weekend, we made the big announcement at Team Penske that they're going to honor the Miller Genuine Draft colors with the black and yellow 2 car. And I walked into Team Penske, and there was 450 employees in there. They were all standing out looking at that car. And we were having a big lunch also. And to look at that car, that all our victories that I've had and the other drivers that drove the 2 car are ghosted into the black. And then to see all those 450 employees on their knees pointing into the yellow to see their name. Their name was all 450 current employees are on that car. And I couldn't believe how much it really turned them on, but it did. It was a great photo op watching these guys at the shop the other day. Really appreciating being included in that car.
When it comes to style and pace of play, very few people would say imitation is the most sincere form of flattery by copying Tony Bennett's pace of play. Like, basketball savants in particular hate it. I shouldn't use that strong of a word, but I do think it's an appropriate word. Like, they have a level of vitriol to Tony Bennett and Virginia basketball, which honestly is ridiculous now because Ryan Odom does not play that style. They average like 82 points a game this past year. They have a totally different pace. But there's a level of disdain for it. But imitation of Tony Bennett's character is the most sincere form of flattery in terms of on a human level, because of the selflessness with which Tony Bennett ran his program, the infamous 5 pillars, the servanthood, being about something bigger than yourself, really carrying that to the point where he left the job. Tony is the anti-Dabo. Like, both of them do not want to be embracing of the modern era of college athletics. The difference is Dabo still wants to make sure that he preserves his
lots of power.
And let's be real here, when you're getting paid 10, 11 million a year, he doesn't want to relinquish
dollar bills, y'all.
Even though he has a problem with players getting paid.
Dollar bills, y'all.
So there is a major difference between the two. But there is an element of the vision years ago that's very similar. Well, if you're going to imitate one, I don't really advise sticking around because of
dollar bills, y'all.
And not wanting to give up
Lots of power.
the way Dabo has. If you really don't want it, just do the Tony Bennett thing and say, this ain't for me. I'm tapping out. I've made plenty. We're good. Disappear on into the spotlight. And by and large, Tony Bennett's done that. But the other imitation, sincerest form of flattery is the servant to the point where a NASCAR team, think about this for a second, NASCAR and UVA, not really using the same sentence very often, JJ. Just call a spade a spade. Let's just say they're generally very different in terms of the perception of their personality, yet a NASCAR team basically copied the Tony Bennett court signature by doing the same thing with the paint scheme they had this past weekend at North Wilkesboro. It is pretty cool, and I think it's a testament to the impact of Tony Bennett before we get into the rest of the fast lane.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I think it's a testament to Tony Bennett's legacy as a whole at UVA and this selflessness that he's displayed with the signatures, having all his staff members on the court. Like you said, Penske copied it and did the same thing. Imitation is flattery. But I love it from everyone. It reminds me of an old Canadian Tire commercial that Bill Ross showed me when I was at Virginia Tech, where it was an athlete who sits down and everyone who helped him throughout his career, his journey to the NHL, would come and be in the picture. So to see something like that, it's always really cool to see people pay homage to those who helped them get where they are. And Tony Bennett and Penske are doing just that.
Meanwhile, we pivot off of that to the Fast Five at 5-ish, which will have a sponsor plug in it as well. You'll figure this out. You might know where I'm going, by the way, in terms of driving decisions that are regrettable. Oh. That will come in a moment. But speaking of football,
it's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kinda ish. Let's start with number 5.
Davie Belfort. Once upon a time committed to Virginia Tech, then was at Central Florida, now is at JMU. It was announced a few weeks ago, but he is not going to be a quarterback. He's transitioned over to wide receiver at JMU. That doesn't really have any bearing on the comments we had earlier in the week about the 3-team competition at quarterback, which everyone knew was not going to feature Belfort. But I find it fascinating because Katie Harper, who's the colleague of DNRonline.com's Shane Metley, observed that, out of all of the potential quarterbacks for the Dukes, Belfort looked like the most awkward fit. If you think about it, it makes sense. The guy's like 5'10", $190. And you can get by with that in certain elements at quarterback, but Virginia's actually an interesting example. A lot of what they did had to give time to the quick processor and the mobile but not very thick and durable Chandler Morris. And a nugget gleaned from the Virginia Media Day today is the fact that, Morris may get into coaching at some point. It would not surprise me at all, considering his dad is the former head coach at Arkansas and is now the OC at Clemson. But Morris took a beating physically with a similar build to Davie Belfort. And Morris took it at quarterback. Tried for the NFL for a moment. I never thought he was likely to be a fit. He's not. Apparently, no thanks to Canadian football, he's getting into the non-football playing world now. I wouldn't be shocked if he takes a breather from football and then gets back into coaching. But it speaks to the Davie Belfort news in the sense that quarterbacks may be given an opportunity to stick at quarterback from high school to college. But by and large, you got to have a level of durability for that position, especially if you're going to be asked to run consistently. You may be mobile, but unless you're freakishly athletic and not all that thick. Think Mike Vick in his heyday, Lamar Jackson, who has actually gotten a lot bigger and thicker in the NFL. Obviously, the other one, God, he escapes my mind. Vick and Jackson are the two that immediately jump out at quarterbacks with freakish athleticism. Jaden Daniels. Thank you. That's the other one. Where they may be a little thin, But for the most part, you got to be able to take a beating the higher up you go. And that's why it makes total sense that Belfort physically looked awkward at quarterback for JMU. I think it's an astute observation of Katie Harper. And what happened at Virginia is an indication of why that's a smart move, because you either have to be a super quick and cerebral processor, like Morris, son of a coach, where it would be natural that's the case, or you're better off probably going to another position where you'll take hits, but not as frequently, and your body can be preserved.
Yeah, anytime you have a quarterback who's really, really skinny, it raises concerns about the durability. And from that position, durability is more important than any other position on the football field. You have your backup quarterback in and not your starter anymore, your team is likely going to see a significant drop-off in performance. And so availability is the best ability, Ed. And I guess they were worried they were going to not have that with Belfort and change of position. Have they said what position he's moving to?
I believe wide receiver.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes more sense.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's either that or defensive back is usually the change position. Meanwhile, speaking of quarterbacks and availability,
Number 4.
2 nuggets. One is quarterback, one is not related, but 2 big nuggets of players in positions at the NFL yesterday. One, Diego Pavia released from the Baltimore Ravens. I guess the only surprise for me is that it happened this quickly into camp. Pavia and the circus/family around him. Plus, he doesn't have great measurables. Kind of, again, similar size. He's a thicker build, but a similar size. But I don't think he's quite as mobile and quite as accurate of a passer as like a Baker Mayfield. Mayfield's also a little bit taller. All of that contributes to the fact that, if you're a starting quarterback, they'll deal with some headaches around you. But if you're going to be a backup in the pros, you might be able to get away with the antics at Vanderbilt where they need you more than you need them. But in the pros, they have Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. They do not need your antics. And if you combine that with the other questions, if you're a backup quarterback in the NFL, you got to be comfortable shifting your role and view on yourself to being more like office furniture, blending in the background. Meanwhile, the other nugget, Nick Scorton, promising second-year edge rusher for the Carolina Panthers, gone for the year, suffered a torn ACL, which is just unfortunate because, it looked like he was ascending. He really played better over the latter part of last season into the playoff push for the Panthers as they lost in the wild card round to the Rams. But, you hate it for a team like the Panthers where, again, I don't know if they're screaming deep NFL playoff run, but they could clearly win that division.
Yeah, anytime you lose pressure off the edge, it really, really hurts your defense. I think of the Commanders team last year who had the same thing happen. Their best edge rusher tore his ACL, and it really hurt them down the stretch. So hopefully the Panthers find a way to bounce back from this injury. I'm really high on Bryce Young. I do think they'll have a good year, but this is obviously not a good look for them.
Speaking of not a good look and quarterbacks,
Number 3.
this news nugget is presented by TrostLaw.com. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yes, I do, Ed.
We have said this before. Now we have to say it again. If Trey is here or listening, I don't know, JJ. I don't know. Or, this is a really big play coming up, Jim. It's a huge play. Thanks. It's 4th down and 1 for the team that has the ball and no timeouts left, and we're under 2 minutes to go. Thanks, Jim.
Do you think that's how he was talking to the police?
In case you're wondering, Tony Romo, yes, one of my favorite punching bags, adds his name to another area where he gets to be a punching bag in the fast lane. He was arrested on suspicion of operating a vehicle while under the influence, according to the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office arrest. It's a great question. Was he? I don't know, officer. I don't know.
I don't know, officer. Do I have to do these sobriety tests? I don't know.
Are you going to do this? I don't know, officer. I don't know. Oh, my goodness. This is a reminder that you need TrostLaw.com because there are people out there that make these poor decisions regularly, even if they have more than enough financial resources.
Dollar bills, y'all.
From being both an NFL quarterback and an extremely overpaid for mediocre results TV analyst. I know this may sound harsh, but I mean, Tony Romo put himself in this position. So I'm going to ask the question. If I'm CBS, am I looking at his contract going, is there some kind of ability to get out of this if you violate behavioral standards? Because Tony Romo, I don't think is worth the amount of money he is making in his contract for the lack of quality analysis that comes out of his mouth repeatedly on NFL games. Back in the day, he predicted plays. When he got further away from the game, he couldn't. Now it's just getting excited a bunch of moments and not really providing any insight and showing it doesn't look like he's putting work in. It seems like he's, putting his efforts into other things like what has apparently just gotten him arrested for suspicion of operating a vehicle while under the influence, according to the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office arrest report. That's as credible as it gets. So if I'm CBS, legit, I am looking to see if there's a way to get out of the Tony Romo contract and going, cut bait now, go after Greg Olson of Fox.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that seems like a no-brainer move.
Yeah, Tony Romo has way too much money and way too much to lose to be making decisions like this. At the end of the day, he could have just called an Uber and we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it now. And to think CBS might be thinking getting rid of his contract, do you think that's something that could materialize over the coming days?
I don't think it will. I think you're smart if you're CBS, if you should. I mean, look, you're paying him a lot of money. It's kind of the Dabo principle again. If you're getting paid $10 million a year, which is not a lot for premium analysts in football, Tony Romo could get away with being mediocre. But when you're paying him close to north of $15 to $20 million a year, you expect good results. And I know you got a lot invested in it, but you're not getting good results. And again, CBS has denied it as you would think they would. But I don't know if I really believe them in this one, where they apparently have had interventions, again, no pun intended here with Tony Romo on the latest news, but interventions with him about the lack of work and progress and results of him being a broadcaster. If I'm CBS, I mean, I will use a term that we beeped out. So Richard Deitch, by the way, had this commentary earlier this week, and he was talking about the layoffs at ESPN and why he doesn't fault some people for trying to get as much money out of that company or any other company while you can. Because in this world, you operate under the principle of...
The moral of the story, having talked to many agents in the field over the years, is whenever you have leverage, I'll just be very blunt here, you have to them before they you, because they will you at a certain point.
So I hope we successfully beat that out, but you probably get what we're going. It is rather crass and blunt, but the reason for bringing that up is Tony Romo did it to CBS. If I'm CBS and I can get out of Romo and paying for a guy that's not worth it, I'm absolutely looking at it and doing it. To me, there's no question that's the right decision. Meanwhile, speaking of broadcasting decisions,
Number 2.
I think this is a smart broadcasting decision. The Duke-Michigan game is now off. Sources have told ESPN this is a basketball game that was going to be played December 21st down at the Miami Marlins Stadium. They were looking at venues down there. When Dusty May left Michigan, they were thinking of doing it again, but moving it to the Miami Heat Arena. Now that is apparently off, and Duke will just face Texas Tech at Madison Square Garden. Honestly, from a viewership standpoint, and I know Mark Byington today, I believe, Mike Boynton, excuse me, not to be confused with Vanderbilt and former JMU coach Mark Byington. But Mike Boynton at Michigan has been announced to be the new head coach for the Wolverines in the last couple of days. But if I'm talking about where I feel the most confident this year, Grant McCasland at Texas Tech, they can spend money to bring back players. They have a pretty strong roster. Everyone knows that they spend money. I actually like this matchup a little bit more from preseason hype standpoint. This may be one of those, you make the best out of the situation. As a neutral observer, although somewhat invested because Duke's in the ACC, I'm more excited for Duke Texas Tech from a quality of play, even if Duke Michigan would be bigger from a two brands competing perspective.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a great game, and I get they wanted to play in a special venue, somewhere unique like the Marlins Stadium, you were saying. But at the end of the day, Madison Square Garden is the most famous arena in the world, so you have two top-quality college programs playing there. It's going to be a great game, and I'm really excited to watch it 4 months down the road.
Now we wrap up the Fast Five at 5-ish with
Number 1.
And the topic that did, in fact, distract me at the Virginia Football Media Day today, even though my phone was on airplane mode, so it did not blow up, and I just turned it on and got 20, 30 messages that were popping in from people on this. LeBron James is signing with the Philadelphia 76ers. But better yet, there are two elements to this. First of all, you asked the question, how do I feel about this as a Sixers fan? Is that what your question was before the show, JJ?
Yes, I'm very curious.
Okay, from that perspective, the most excitement I have was when they showed the lineup of potential Philadelphia 76ers. And it's got LeBron, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Jaylen Brown. And then the former number 1 pick who cries when things don't go well in a game, but never commits himself to treating himself as a basketball asset. That's Joel Embiid, who I can't stand because he cries when they lose to Toronto in the playoffs in heartbreaking fashion, but he doesn't show the level of commitment to keeping himself in physical shape so that he can endure a long season, not be rolling around on the floor or suffering hamstring and out-of-shape injuries, and still gets paid and still doesn't act like a pro. My biggest faith is, brace yourself for this if you're listening, Trey, that LeBron James, For years, I have made fun of Coach and GM LeBron James. I am now cheering for Coach LeBron James because if anybody can get through to Joel Embiid on how to act like a professional away from game time, carry yourself like it, treat your body that way, do the little things in terms of sports nutrition and sports science. LeBron has done it at an immaculate level to keep playing into his 40s. And while he's not what he was years ago, he still plays at a high level and is still a contributor and carries the cachet of being one of the 5 greatest players in the game. Not number 1, that's Michael Jordan, but being well above anybody on this roster. 3 of the guys I think carry themselves professionally: Edgecombe, Maxey, and Jaylen Brown. Brown, at times, antics and words need to be curtailed. LeBron may not be one to talk about it. But Embiid is my punching bag. I am optimistic that's where it needs to be.
So when I saw this 5-man lineup, the first thing that popped into my head was usage. Are you familiar with usage rates in the NBA, Ed?
Yes. How many minutes you can basically accrue?
So it's what percentage of the time a possession that you're on the floor ends with you shooting from the field, shooting free throws, or turning the ball over. So basically it's a measure of how often possessions are ending with the ball in your hand. And I did the math, and so 100% is the standard usage rate for an NBA team. Between VJ Edgecombe, LeBron, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Jaylen Brown, it's a total of 142%. Jaylen Brown is the highest of that with a 35% usage. Now, this is last year, so that's inflated because, he was the face of the Celtics, but my concern with the Sixers team is there is only one basketball to go around. And sure, those 5 guys did combine for 121 points per game alone last year. But you've got to learn how to play with each other. And Jaylen Brown last year, he was the sole guy on Boston. He didn't have to really play with anyone. I mean, Derek White was the number 2 option, and he's more of a role player. So I'm curious to see how this team plays together. To compare it to a soccer team, it kind of feels like when PSG had Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar on the team, and they just weren't ever able to put it together. But at the end of the day, you have so much talent on this roster, not even to mention Anthony Simons off the bench. Sixers are very, very scary, and it's all kind of a product of the Jaylen Brown trade.
I think it's a valid point. Only one ball to go around. Is this closer to the Philadelphia Eagles' dream team with Vince Young, which was just an absolute disaster? Or is this going to be a scenario where, wow, they might actually realize their potential? I'm optimistic, but I must admit there's reservations about it. By the way, one bonus one before we wrap up the Fast 5 at 5-ish. The tweet about this is hilarious. I mean, can you tell who leaked the story to Shams Charania? Have you read the direct tweet word for word?
Yes, I have.
For those that have not, let's just humor ourselves on a Friday. Breaking in caps locks. LeBron James is signing with the Philadelphia 76ers on a 2-year, $8 million deal with a player option. This is the best part. Clutch Sports Group and Clutch CEO and Game Over show host Rich Paul tells ESPN. I mean, geez, who tipped off Shams Charania on that one? You want to take a guess?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Rich Paul, Ed.
I can only imagine, considering he was listed as being the patron saint of 3 separate organizations.
You even got the podcast plug in there, or the show plug.
Because that's relevant to this entire LeBron James decision.
That's what people are going to be talking about when LeBron signs with a new team, is what show Rich Paul's a part of, huh?
I mean, really? LeBron, one of the best players. LeBron, the branding egomaniac, I think you can say there's some truth to that as well here in the fast lane. When we return, he's not an egomaniac. He's got great insight. He is as humble as it gets. John Manson from ASeerRed.com. Observations on Conference USA Media Days and the Liberty Flames place there. Then after that, former Liberty University Director of Spiritual Engagement, Ed Gomes. All of that's still to come here in the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app and ask that smart speaker open VTRN Sports.
Mark Dalton here with the Terry Auto Group. If you don't love your car, then you're simply just driving the wrong one. At Terry Volkswagen, Terry Subaru, Terry Auto Outlet, and the Terry Clearance Center, we've got the perfect new or used car for you. We make your car buying experience easy. Need help with imperfect credit? No problem. Our team works hard to get you approved and back on the road. Because when you shop at Terry, you drive away happy. Visit us at any of our 4 locations or online at terryautogroup.com. Terry Auto Group. You'll love our cars.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real tech knowledge so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
Edge of your seat drama, the thrilling pursuit of victories and championships. From the premier NASCAR series to local racing, visit frontstretch.com for your true inside access. We don't just report the news, we live it. From insightful articles and captivating podcast commentary, frontstretch.com opens the gates to the NASCAR pits, track, and corporate suite so you can get closer to the garage than ever before. Frontstretch.com, fast, fearless, focused on racing fans.
When you walk into Haley's, you see the size and selection of a big box store. Over 19,000 square feet of appliances and mattresses. Leading appliances like KitchenAid, Whirlpool, Maytag, Genair, Speed Queen, GE, and Monogram. And mattresses like Sealy, Serta, and Tempur-Pedic. So what's the difference? A family, locally owned business. And a staff committed to servicing you over the entire life of the product. That means before, during, and well after your purchase. Visit Haley's today, just off Ward Road in Lynchburg. Haley's, quality that counts.
Hey, this is Kurt Warner, Hall of Fame quarterback, and you're listening to VTRN Sports 93.3 FM and the VTRN Sports app, the home of the NFL all season long.
Come join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
How surprised? I guess you could say somewhat surprised, but how surprised is our next guest, John Manson, founder and contributor for AseaofRed.com, who is joining us in the Fast Lane. John, first of all, pleasure to be speaking with you. Glad to have you back in the Fast Lane. You'll be seeing a lot more of my ugly face. I'll get to see a lot more of your wonderful smile over the next handful of months because we're basically here. Football Media Days this week for the Conference USA, and then going forward, training camp and all the stories. How surprised were you at the tone of Jamey Chadwell, particularly a level of disappointment and accountability towards himself for the last couple of years, not just the results, but for his health that he believes contributed to the lack of results for the Flames?
Yeah, it's always good to chat. And like you said, we'll be seeing each other a lot more in person here as we come out of the dog days of summer and into fall and training camp. But, I'm not really surprised at what he had to say. I mean, we've kind of heard him talking in that manner, like in the spring and since we've had a chance to talk to him after his surgery in January when he returned back to football operations and things. And I think the biggest takeaway for me was how open and seemingly honest he was about how much his health, in his opinion, his challenges in that regard, in his opinion, has played a factor to this Liberty football team. And if you go back and look, Liberty was 18-1 in the first 19 games under head coach Jamey Chadwell. And obviously the one loss was in the Fiesta Bowl to Oregon. And since then, the Flames have been 7-12. And obviously in January, we learned that Coach Chadwell was dealing with a serious but treatable medical condition that required surgery that had him away from work and football and the football offices for about a month. And then this week, he kind of talked about how he had really been dealing with health battles going back even to 2024, the 2024 season. So he knew what his diagnosis was going into the 2025 year last year, found out about it last summer. And we've heard through various sources that he was apparently considering taking a leave of absence and stepping away from the football team at some point last season, but decided against that. And then 2024, you may remember, Ed, but there was a moment during that season. I've just been trying to tie these loose knots together here recently, but there was a point about midway, maybe towards the end of that season, where Coach Chadwell had one of his weekly scheduled press conferences canceled kind of last minute. And we went on to find out it was a health-related issue. But this week he said that he was having blood work done during the 2024 season to try to figure out what was wrong with him. And so that there was something going on. I don't know for 100% that all that was tied together, but it seems to be based on his comments this week and what we've learned over the last several months. So could that be a true factor in why the team started 18-1 and has been 7-12 since? I think we'll start to find some of the answers to that question, once the Flames take the field this fall, beginning September 5th at James Madison.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger storylines that is worth mentioning. You bring that point up, John, and again, I'll get my usher on for a moment in the fast lane and confess that when that initially happened, you're in a tough season, you kind of wonder about it, and I didn't pay it nearly the amount of attention that I probably should have in terms of the health complications of this with Jamie Chadwell and everything that's weighing on him. Do you also have to reasonably say, and this is not, again, to make an excuse or to criticize Jamie Chadwell, but the stress of success and obviously the changing landscape of college sports, I would imagine that has to have also weighed on him to the point where you try to, I think, do people forget? These are competitive people, so the natural inclination is to fight and battle through it, and it may take a lot of time to realize that when it comes to your health, you can't really do that. Sometimes you have to be able to know when to downshift.
Oh, 100%. And, you're talking about a guy in Coach Chadwell who was coming off an amazing run of success. I mean, he was one of the winningest coaches in college football for, about 4 or 5 seasons there. 2 11-win seasons at Coastal Carolina, the 13-win year at Liberty, obviously, in his first season. So you couple that all together with, wanting to figure it out and, maybe trying to fight through maybe some of these medical issues that he was having and trying to, downplay them and maybe think that they're not something that's really affecting him. And maybe going through this, he's had a chance to kind of sit back and realize exactly the toll it had, not just on him personally, but also professionally, and how much it impacted his team. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying that, and I don't think Coach Chadwell is either, that saying because of his health issues is why the team has struggled so much last year and at the end of 2024. Like I said, we'll start to find out if that's a legitimate reason. I think there's other issues or challenges that Coach Chadwell, not unlike other coaching staffs and head coaches have had to deal with these past 2 or 3 years, is dealing with the transfer portal and more specifically NIL, and how to manage a roster in the NIL and transfer portal world, especially when your budgets have been increasing. And now Liberty, which we know is one of, if not the most well-resourced program, not just in Conference USA, but in the group of 6. As that budget has continued to increase from an NIL perspective, with internal NIL from the Flames, with the revenue sharing, just learning how to navigate that and how to effectively, appropriate those funds across your roster and make sure you value the right positions and the right type of people. And I'm sure that's a learning experience. We've seen it, talking about Liberty and men's basketball. Coach McKay had to learn how to navigate the transfer portal and maintain his strong culture, which he's had success now with, Conference USA tournament and regular season championship, almost 2 years ago now. And then this past season, the regular season championship as well, dealing with a lot of transfer portal guys. So, for the Flames on the football field, that's something Coach Chadwell's got to learn how to navigate as well too. And so I think that's another big factor in addition. So has he learned how to handle that? Kind of similar to what Dabo Swinney has kind of been criticized with here recently is not being able to figure out how to deal with the portal and NIL and things of that nature. But we'll start to get some of those answers once the Flames hit the field in September.
SeaofRed.com founder and contributor John Manson is with us here in the Fast Lane. John, other takeaways when it comes to the Conference USA Media Day and it relates to the Liberty Flames. One, we'll stick with Jamie Chadwell and wrap up on the subject, saying that he feels night and day better. Do you believe that you've seen that earlier, or is that something you're also going to be monitoring in terms of his level of energy and, frankly, how that translates to the level of urgency and cohesiveness for the Flames during camp when that begins in a week or so?
Oh yeah, certainly. It'll definitely be something that we're paying a close eye to is how he's moving around the football practice fields, because he's gone back and forth between the indoor and outdoor practice fields that Liberty uses, the adjacent fields there over on campus, and sometimes running back and forth between the two. I mean, is he physically in the condition that he's able to do that? We had heard, and a lot of practice in the spring was closed to the media. I think probably due a lot to Coach Chadwell's medical condition, but we had heard that he wasn't able to really even walk, much less run around the fields. And you can understand that coming off of surgery as you're trying to get back to being as close to 100% as you can be. But we'll definitely be paying attention to that with Coach Chadwell once practice gets started here in about a little bit less than 2 weeks now.
John, there are a number of stories that are going to dominate. One that we can ask you about, though, right now, because it's going to just be there the entire camp until something is resolved, is obviously the quarterback position. How surprised were you at the tone Jamie Chadwell struck at Conference USA Media Day, where, I think a lot of us may be thinking that, Deshaun Purdy may emerge from this, but it doesn't seem like he's the clear front runner or has any sizable advantage over anybody else, with Chadwell terming this to be a pretty deep and probably a ferocious battle when camp gets underway.
Yeah, I think it was our friend over the News in Advance, Bryson Gordon, that asked that question about the quarterback battle. And he was really asking specifically about the leadership intangibles that the two incoming transfers, Jalen Henderson and Deshaun Purdy, have and what they've shown to their team. And if you remember a year ago, that was something Coach Chadwell was harping on a lot in that quarterback battle last year that obviously Ethan Vasco went on to win, was the intangibles, the leadership piece that you need from a quarterback. So, but Coach Chadwell, he really didn't go into specifics, and I wouldn't expect him to, but he did talk about three quarterbacks. I mean, the question was specifically about those two transfers, and he was quick to make sure he pointed out that Vasco is still, who now is recovered from his offseason shoulder surgery, and he's a guy that's going to be counted on in this, at least a factor in this quarterback battle here in training camp. So one thing, for Liberty fans that you should see as a positive is you've got three guys with FBS starting experience at the quarterback position going into training camp. Obviously Vasco, and then also Purdy and Henderson, who have both started games at the Power 4 level and started multiple games across multiple seasons. So you got three guys that have that level of experience. That's not something Liberty had last year in that quarterback battle, where it was basically Vasco with the only one with significant playing experience. So you got three. So even if, Coach Chadwell and the Flames decide to go with one guy, I don't know if we can necessarily say they're 100% beholden to that guy if the season starts off slow, kind of like it did last year, where the Flames were 1-4 and unable to move the ball at times and find consistency on offense. But I don't think they really the coaching staff had much confidence in the guys behind Vasco. And we kind of saw some of what happened and what that looked like after Vasco got injured in the JMU game, and then also against ODU, and then even as the season progressed. But this year, I think, at least on paper, you would think the Flames have three guys that they feel at least somewhat confident that if one guy is struggling, they can quickly pivot and turn to one of the other two.
Last question for John Manson, a CFRed.com Liberty Flames reporter who's generous enough to join us in the fast lane. We use this phrase a lot here in the fast lane. When it comes to resources, LU does not quite equal LSU, and the S might even be a dollar sign for LSU, the way they just throw money at everything. But when it comes to Liberty, they maximize finances and understanding the market and how to make the most of their situation. Is the Bradley LaCroix extension for the baseball coach at Liberty, after a great year or two, but maybe a little earlier than people would think, how much is that extension an example of Jamie Chadwell and Liberty understanding the marketplace, which is get a guy like Bradley LaCroix tied up early where, again, you may not be able to keep him from leaving for like an LSU, but you can keep him in the fold a lot longer and have a level of strength shown for your program when you get these things taken care of early.
Yeah, I think, Ian McCall, Liberty's athletic director, has shown a propensity to, I don't know if quick is the right word, but, quickly respond and make moves and quick to get his head coaches to sign them on to contract extensions. I mean, it's happened to Coach McKay almost every year after the season. It's announced that an additional year is added. And we saw it with Hugh Freeze previously as head coach on the football side, and Coach Chadwell had an extension after the Fiesta Bowl year, and then as far as I know, did not get one either the prior 2 years, which you can understand why. But Coach LaCroix, what he's shown really in his first 2 years, but obviously specifically this past season, what this Flames team was able to do on the diamond, and we talked about it, I believe it was last week, about just a Major League Baseball draft and having so many guys selected in the draft, and obviously highlighted by Ben Blair going the second round of the Tampa Bay Rays. And, it just, and then also being able to sign an extension to Coach LaCroix is, it's kind of means more on their recruiting front, I think, than it does really anything else, is like just making a statement to recruits that, Coach LaCroix is currently going after, and prospective student athletes will be going after here in the coming weeks, months, and years even, that Liberty is committed to him, committed to this baseball program and seeing it through, and seeing the Flames return to being a yearly regional type of threat like the Flames were just a few years ago. And I think under Coach LaCroix, the Flames have been moving and certainly are moving in that direction. And you would like to think, especially with some of these portal additions he's been able to add already, that the Flames will continue to move in that direction in the future under Coach LaCroix.
John, we appreciate your time and info today in the Fast Lane. We'll cut it off right there because we got to get ready for a Faith Fridays chat with Dr. Ed Gomes, the former director of spiritual development at Liberty University. In the meantime, we appreciate your time. We look forward to many more of these. It's basically here, football season essentially back.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Ed, and look forward to hearing your conversation with Dr. Gomes. Love Dr. Gomes and everything he means to Liberty and just the Lynchburg community in general.
Well, we appreciate the kind words, and we'll tee it up when we return. John Manson's T's and R's. We pay it off next here in the Fast Lane.
Big transitions feel like big hurdles. That's why Central Virginia Counseling has 2 dynamic 6-week summer groups for rising 6th and 9th graders packed with essential life skills. Each week targets a new skill for success, tools like organization, time management, task initiation, anxiety reduction techniques, and skills for making friends and communicating well. Through peer connection and expert guidance, students will gain tools to feel capable, connected, and ready for day one. Visit us on Timberlake Road or Wigington Road in Lynchburg, or at centralvirginiacounseling.com to learn more.
Lunchtime just got an upgrade. Stop by McAdoo's for our $8.95 weekday special and grab a legendary sandwich at an unbeatable price. Choose from your favorite classics to Coney Island, Betty Bob, Ragtime, or Stogie. Classic sandwiches packed with savory meats and flavors in between fresh bread. Make it a meal by pairing your sandwich with a sidekick, a warm cup of soup, or crispy chips. Great food, cozy vibes, and the best deal in town.
It's time to share it and fun. Just to be there, the only one. Just to be there at McAdoo's.
We'll see you at the Do's.
Summer is here, and there's no better time to find a place you'll love to call home. Whether you're looking for a cozy apartment, spacious townhome, or a quiet single-family home, Brownstone Properties has options designed for your lifestyle and budget. Enjoy the season with comfort, convenience, and peace of mind. Don't spend another summer searching. Let Brownstone Properties help you find your perfect home today. Visit brownstoneproperties.com or call 434-385-1025.
Brownstone Properties, where home is at the heart of everything we do.
End zone, light them up, touchdown Liberty.
The atmosphere at a game is amazing. It is like family.
I've been a season ticket holder for 14 seasons. The atmosphere is electric.
On the near sideline.
It's an experience you look forward to every week. I like the pageantry, the band.
The pride of knowing that this is our university.
2026 Flames football season tickets are on sale now. Get yours at lufootball.com.
Come join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
He's been at Liberty for quite a long time. He's been involved in the program both in a faculty role and an advisory role, and now he's generous enough to join us here in the Fast Lane He's Dr. Ed Gomes, stepping into the fast lane on our Faith Friday segment. He's the former director of spiritual development for Liberty University Athletics and the Liberty Flames. Dr. Gomes, first of all, welcome to the fast lane, and we commend you right off the bat for having one of the best names imaginable. And it looks like, I don't know if we're having another technical difficulty trying to get linked up with him. We'll see if we can work through that with him. If not, I will text you his number and we'll call him to try to get that linked up. I don't know what's going on. This is one of those look into it. Dr. Ed Gomes with us here in the fast lane. Dr. Gomes, can you hear us right now? Okay, we're having some technical challenges with him. Let me give you a phone number then, and we'll call him up instead if we're not able to get him going a little bit sooner. This is always, nothing makes for good radio quite like this. It's just giving my phone away to JJ. But we'll get with Dr. Gomes in a moment here in the fast lane. I'm first of all most intrigued just to hear how everything is going with him, his development. One more time. Can you hear us, Dr. Gomes? Okay. We'll cut the stream. JJ's giving him a call right now, and we're going to pivot immediately because we don't want to be wasting too much time. I'd love to get to the bottom of this, by the way, and figure out what's going on. But the biggest challenge that people are wondering is I'm on the air, so it's hard for me to troubleshoot in real time. And this is often the time where you're trying to work through these lessons. And again, to get into the weeds, to be blunt, most of my time is spent away from the office each day. So trying to figure out these problems while not knowing what's going on is a challenge, and especially if it's on the end of somebody else. Anyway, Dr. Gomes, he's been at Liberty for about a decade, two and a half decades, at least in the football capacity, and has been around advising a lot of people in that role. The role came to be, it's natural at a place like Liberty, but other coaches and other programs have taken on these type of roles where there's team chaplains, there's people that are around. I think what's different and unique, obviously, for Liberty is it can be with a Christian-based focus because that is the mission of the university, whereas other places, there may be even Christian-based team chaplains, but the people you have on the roster are going to be different. Are you able to get linked up with him right now? Have you been able to get his number and get him called in? We will try to get with Dr. Gomes. When you try to do things like this is where Satan intervenes and makes it infinitely more challenging than you would ever want it to be. This might be one of those bring him in the studio type situations in the near future to try to get this resolved, because we do want to get with him. He's got such a fascinating story, and we teed it up. So, but the challenge of doing that, I think also a lot of it is the era of athletes have changed so much. So that's another element to this. What's changed and motivated. So we finally have Dr. Ed Gomes with us here in the fast lane. Dr. Gomes, first of all, we appreciate you for being patient with whatever technical challenges we have been working through. I always say this because we've had this a couple of times with multiple guests on our Faith Fridays segment, whereas when you're doing something with a Christian-based faith, that's when Satan likes to attack you. It goes to my big theory, which is when I tell people, and again, people's faith journeys are individual, but I do not sell the convert to Christianity and your problems disappear. It don't quite work like that. It just means you're hopefully better equipped to handle them. After my little spiel, where am I wrong and where am I somewhat potentially correct in that assessment?
You know, one of the things that I've come to realize over the last 25 years is you can have a lot of spiritual and moral victories, but the bottom line is you got to win on the field. And the thing that I get excited about is that we have an emphasis on the academic, the athletic, the social, and the spiritual. And so we try to get the best out of all four of those areas. And so that's what kind of makes Liberty unique. In fact, God has always given us opportunities, with a few exceptions, to win the ball game, but you got to make the play. So prayer is important, but the guys have to execute the plan that the coaches give to them. And if we do that, there's a chance that we're going to win the ball game.
Dr. Ed Gomes, stopping by with us here in the fast lane, former director of spiritual development for Liberty University, and he's joining us here in the fast lane. Dr. Gomes, you brought a number of different nuggets of wisdom in that initial response in terms of ultimately having to find a way to execute what's going on. How has your communication and how did your communication evolve from when you first got into that role, particularly in January 2001 at Liberty, to over multiple decades there?
Well, I've had the privilege of working with 5 different head coaches, and they're unique and similar in many ways, but they all have their ways of leading the program, and so it's been a great privilege for me. So the first thing I've always tried to do, Ed, is first of all to serve the head coach, to serve the coordinators, to serve the coaches, to serve the staff, and to serve the players. And so it was always looking for opportunities to serve. You know, there may be a kid that may be struggling on the field, and so I'm going to find a way to encourage him. You know, there may be young men that were struggling in the classroom. I'm going to find a way to encourage him. And of course, you know, sometimes we've had young men not make good social and spiritual decisions. And so again, it was an opportunity to help that young man realize that God has brought him to Liberty to maximize his gifts and talents through the experience at Liberty. So for me, it was always not looking at where the player was, but where he could be if he would embrace what was available for him there.
When you're going through that process, and Dr. Ed Gomes is with us here in the Fast Lane on our Faith Friday segment, you mentioned not always making the best decisions. I made plenty of horrible decisions, bad decisions at least, questionable to be generous, back especially when I was in my high school and college years. How much of your ability to work with people through that came from being present around them and observing? How much of it came from offering suggestions and advice?
Well, one of the things that the players knew is that they were loved. And my love for them was not depending on what they did or what they didn't do. It was unconditional love. Now, there were times when guys weren't making good decisions, and we had to have a good, honest conversation, but they knew that my love for them was never going to waver. And so part of my role was helping guys to realize that God is trying to use the coaches, God is trying to use the teachers, God is trying to use the players, God is trying to use the staff, God is trying to use just all kinds of people and circumstances to help them maximize the opportunity here. And so it was always, how can I help somebody get where they need to be? And sometimes that involves a conversation with the parent. Sometimes it involves a conversation with the coach. Sometimes it involved a conversation with the player. And so whoever it was, and whenever it was about helping the young man maximize the opportunity. And here's the other thing too, Ed, is at Liberty, it's about redemption and restoration. You know, so we've had guys in the past that have made bad decisions while in other programs. And coaches have given them a chance because the coaches realize that here at Liberty, we may be able to help them figure it out and become that productive student athlete.
What role did you play, whether it's trying to get to know a prospective Liberty player, offering advice to coaches when they're considering that type of player, even if you didn't necessarily meet that player? How were you able to be a resource to coaches in figuring out, okay, I think I might be able to connect with this player, and while they might have some baggage in the past, we can work with him and help him to really mature and figure out who he is and who God wants him to be?
You know, one of the things that I've appreciated about the coaches is that, especially when Coach Freeze came, I knew the gate was going to open a little wider. And the thing that I appreciated about Coach Freeze is that if a young man made a mistake and he was willing to learn from it, then we're going to give him a chance. And I'll give you a good example. Malik Willis. Malik Willis was at Auburn. I mean, he wasn't really out there, but obviously, you know, he left Auburn and came to Liberty. And Coach Freeze gave him a chance. And here he is today playing with Miami. A young man whose life was changed because somebody gave him a chance. And so during recruiting, when the players, when the potential student athletes are here on campus, obviously conversations with parents, conversations with coaches, the high school coaches, the parents, and then of course our coaches. And so there's a lot of collaboration with people talking about this individual. So again, when Coach Chadwell came, one of the biggies with Coach Chadwell was, does this young man fit here? And if he fits, regardless of where he's at spiritually, we were going to give him a chance because maybe God was going to use us to lead him to Christ or help him become more like Christ. So, Ed, it was a team effort.
Dr. Ed Gomes, former director of spiritual development, Liberty Flames, with us here in the Fast Lane, W227BG Timberlake, WVGM Ambulishburg, WMNA Gretna, Danville Southside, the VTRN Sports app, and Fast Lane Ed Lane on the socials and wherever you listen to podcasts. If you've missed anything already or would like to listen and share with a friend, Dr. Gomes, you referenced that, and Malik Willis being one example of that, but others as well. How much of getting to people and being able to help them and guide them is something that happened on a personal level? And what I mean by that, I guess, is being able to be in the presence of people, really connect, and hopefully be able to break down barriers and get to know them?
Yes, very important. Relations are very important. It could be as simple as, you know, recognize when there's a birthday. Or it could be an achievement that the athlete is making in the classroom. Or it could be just, you know, going to Joe Beans for a smoothie, and during that smoothie time, we're having a conversation about life. You know, maybe I might see that young person doing something off the field. So I'm going to find a way to compliment him. And you know what's amazing, Ed? Well, I meant to say this. The very fact that your name is Ed and my name is Ed, I know we're going to have a great program. Let's get that right out in the open. But, you know, these days with the NIL and the portal, a lot of the kids are really having difficulty with trust. Can I trust the coaches? Are the coaches going to do what they said they're going to do? And so trust is built through relationship. And when you build those relationships, you earn the right to speak into the lives of young men to help them make good decisions. And what I have found, Ed, when guys have been thorough about making decisions, whether to stay or leave, they usually made the right decision. There were some guys who weren't thorough, and they made the wrong decisions, and they regretted it.
Can you tell by being around not just a player, but whoever's part of his circle, how much work he or she might need and the level of receptiveness to what you can provide to help them be the best version of themselves?
You know, one of the things that I tried to do, Ed, if there was a particular challenge that a student athlete was dealing with, one of the questions I asked is, who is somebody that's close with him? You know, who is somebody that he has a relationship with? So once that person was identified, then that person will be brought into the conversation. See, because maybe God's going to use that person closest to him to help him figure it out. Now, if the young man doesn't want to figure it out, Ed, then it's not going to be a good experience because the person's not teachable.
How do you know the difference between when somebody may just be frustrated at a crossroad? You know, they may be acting out, but it's in a manner of frustration, and you can give them that little nudge or have that little moment, versus this person's much harder to reach, and maybe even, I hate to say it, unreachable, but they're not at a point where they're receptive. How do you know the difference?
Well, first of all, anybody can have a bad moment. And I have them, you have them, we all have, coaches have them. And so, but when you see a pattern, usually that pattern shows up in other areas. You know, maybe they'll show up in the classroom, or maybe they'll show up off the field. Maybe they'll show up when they're with their tutor. But it'll show up if this player is not teachable, Ed, it will show up in other areas. Sometimes academically, sometimes it'll show up on the field, sometimes it'll show up socially, and sometimes it'll show spiritually. And so usually when you're seeing red lights in a number of areas, that's usually an indication that right now this person is not open for the help. And like Daddy said, sometimes you have to learn through the school of hard knocks. And that's tough.
Former Liberty University Director of Spiritual Development, Ed Gomes, stopping by with us here in the Fast Lane. He's doing a much better job than I am of upholding the greatness of the name Ed. So
there you go.
You know,
there you go.
You know, you get it. You understand it. I think there's certain personality traits that are common with certain names, and hopefully we share the positives from the name Ed. Couple of moments for you in life. First of all, you graduated from Liberty in 3 different areas, degrees, and occasions: 1976, 1985, and 2007. What prompted you to stick around as Liberty evolved during your different stints and graduations and studies while working in a professional capacity as well with the school?
You know, first of all, it was the people that were here, my coaches, my professors, administration. And so these were folks that led by example. And so in 1995, Ed, I came to preach in Convo. I was serving on a church staff with my wife's dad up in Massachusetts. And I came to preach in Convo. And man, on the way back on that plane, I said, no way. No way. God, you want us to come back to Lynchburg? Well, from a human standpoint, it was crazy. All my family's there. I was serving as a police chaplain. God was blessing the ministry. But man, it was obvious that God wanted us back in Lynchburg in 96. And that was kind of the same thing when I came back in 1980. There was an opportunity to serve as a dorm supervisor in the athletic dome. We had the football team, baseball team, basketball team. And so again, being a former student athlete, they felt like I could meet that need. And so God just has a way of working the details out, Ed. And as I look back, I don't regret any decision I made to come back to Lynchburg, Virginia to serve here at Liberty University.
I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Truman Show. I don't quote movies very often in the Fast Lane because there are not very many that I've actually seen. But I do remember that one. And, you know, every time he's trying to escape, some obstacle pops up. When you were trying to escape coming back to Lynchburg, or at least dodge it, did you kind of encounter the same situation where every time you tried to rebuff it, it's like, nope, nope, nope. And ultimately, like, the road just kept getting blocked, and it became clear to you, even if you didn't want to embrace it, that Liberty University and Lynchburg were where you were called, and it only makes sense now when we're chatting in the Fast Lane with the benefit of hindsight.
You know, as I look back, there's a number of things that were used to confirm the decision. One was the word, the second was circumstances, and then people. And so as I look back, even as coming in as a freshman, there was the word, there were circumstances, and people. And the same thing is true in 1980, and the same thing is true also in 1996. And those are guidelines that I've shared with others, that I live by myself. What I can say is I look back, those were consistent, Ed. The word, circumstances, and people. And I've looked back without any regret.
All of those are key elements which do make sense. Dr. Ed Gomes, former director of spiritual development for Liberty University, is stopping by with us in the Fast Lane. Elements of being able to relate to a student athlete. What advantage do you have having played basketball at the Division I level, having played at Liberty University 3 years starting point guard, even if we're not going to tell when, but it was in a different era from these players, knowing a lot of what they're juggling and being able to reflect on what it was like for you going through your life at their age.
You know, one of the things that I always appreciated about being in the role, in fact, when the door opened up to work as a chaplain with football, you know, my life has all been basketball. In fact, one time I remember a coach was asking me if that was a free something. I said, yeah, it looks like a three-pointer to me. And folks laugh because I grew up playing basketball, but now I got into football. And so regardless of the sport, there are some things that are true of every sport. You know, for example, you have to have goals. You have to be a team player. You have to exercise discipline. You have to go to class. You have to have good attitude. And so I think growing up a family with girls and guys who have played primarily basketball, you just learn to relate. You see things. You know, you see guys trying to get out of something. Or sometimes you see a coach getting on a player because he was trying to get out of something. And so you have a way of sharing some of your experiences as a student athlete. And hopefully it encourages the student athlete that's here today to learn something from it. In fact, what's amazing though, Ed, some of the things that these kids face today, the pressure today, the challenges today, it's 100 times bigger and greater than the challenges I faced as a student athlete. But you look for an opportunity to do something either by what you say or by what you do to earn the right to speak into the life of that student athlete. And over time, you win their hearts.
Dr. Ed Gomes with us here in the Fast Lane. Dr. Gomes, we will have you on again to discuss different elements of your journey, different observations in sports. There are plenty of other topics we can get to, including as the season gets underway, what it's like just going through the journey of being someone in this role. We'll wrap it up on this one, though. The obvious is the transition that you made after 25 years with football in the athletic department to a new role serving the faculty and staff at Liberty University. How has that transition gone for you?
Man, I'll tell you, Ed, if you had told me 11 months ago that I'm going to be serving as the faculty chaplain and staff chaplain, I said, you got to be nuts. In fact, when I mentioned to Coach that I was actually applying for another position, his first thought was, man, I wasn't planning on having this conversation. We were getting ready for training camp. We're getting ready for football season. And again, I go back to those three things I told you. The word, circumstances, and people. And to make a long story short, Ed, I got a text that said after a little while that I got a meeting with the chancellor the dean of the seminary, and Josh Rutledge, our vice president of spiritual development. When I got that text and I indicating I had a meeting, I said, something's going on. And when I got in that meeting, I said, guys, what's going on? And they said, Ed, last couple of months we've been talking about this role. And every time we talk about it, your name is one of the names that's been popping up. And I'm sitting there, Ed, clear as day. God said, this is the next assignment. And I've not looked back since.
It's amazing how that works. In the moment, there's uneasiness, and then when it's done, and things start to make sense. And now you have, once again, the benefit of hindsight in understanding that. Dr. Ed Gomes with us here in the Fast Lane, former director of spiritual development for Liberty Flames Athletics, is generous enough to join us in the Fast Lane. Dr. Gomes, glad we could connect for the first time today in the Fast Lane. It took a moment. We persevered, kind of like the principles of being around sports and athletics. We don't say this lightly, but we love to catch up again.
Sounds great, Ed. I appreciate what you're doing. God bless you. Wish you the best. Go Flames.
Dr. Ed Gomes with us here in the Fast Lane on our Faith Fridays. I need to temper myself. They're going to just have their elements of adversity. By the way, we'll do it normally on Fridays for the next few weeks. We're kind of toying with plans if we'll do Faith Fridays maybe on a Thursday when high school football gets here in a few weeks because of travel schedules. So just follow that in the back of your mind. We want to keep doing these, but days may need to be flexible because there's some days where travel schedules get a little wonky getting ready for the games. And we may even have some with color analyst for Jefferson Forest Cavalier football, Dr. Coach. We call him Coach Kennedy, but he's also Pastor Rick of Impact Church. But we call him Coach Kennedy for our purposes. And he's a spiritual life coach as a pastor. So we can technically say that works multiple ways. Anyway, that's a topic for a different day. JJ's like, Ed, let's wrap this up so we can get out of here. We appreciate all of you for your time here in the Fast Lane. If you missed anything, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, however you listen to podcasts, we're back Monday, 5 to 6. Your teams, your topics covering the Commonwealth. In the meantime, Fast Lane, Ed Lane on the socials. Keep it locked right there.
Philadelphia traded for Dr.